Are you claustrophobic? Because the Bonehunters may not be for you. I mean, I freaking love this book, but if you have issues with tight spaces, well, how does one do a full review of a Malazan book and not run for 3 hours? Heck, I try to do this as a rapid review. Practically impossible. Nevertheless, here's what jumped out for me after having finished this book. Note, this is a full spoiler episode, what we technically do call this category of rapid review here on Fantasy for the Ages, the show where I and my son Zach talk about the fantasy and science fiction books we've loved reading, as well as some other nerdy things once in a while. If you enjoy what you hear today, don't forget to hit the like button down below and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. For this book, again, full spoiler. So I'm talking about the Bone Hunters. Read the book first, then come back and see what I had to say. So, what do I have to say? Well, first off, this is the book where all the plot lines laid out in books 1 through 5 come together and bear such epic fruit. I was so impressed at discovering just how much Stephen Erickson had packed into my brain through the first 5 books of this series. How much I could now grasp and appreciate from what had happened in those books and how they play into the huge narrative of the Bone Hunters. I know the fandom is all about the reread, but here I'm already seeing so many connections, such brilliance in this narrative. This book was fantastic. I also want to give a big shout out to Ian C. Esselmont and his Knight of Knives, a novel of the Malazan Empire. I'm surprised to see that many people in the fandom don't really care for that book much, but I thought it was perfect to have read it just before reading The Bone Hunters. It gave me a better appreciation for the overall Malazan Book of the Fallen story, and in particular, the final section of this book that takes place in Malaz City. I got so much more out of it because I'd read Knight of Knives. So, just saying, Esselmont, well done. And anyone who hasn't read Knight of Knives before reading this is missing out. So, let me touch on what I saw as the most significant features of this story. In no way am I going to cover everything from the Bone Hunters. Again, I'm not here for 3 hours. This is a rapid review. But we've got some things that happen in the prologue. They're amazing, and I'm not even going to talk about. There's so much there. Just trust me, it's amazing. I get it. But let's move into the core narrative where we are back at the continent of 7 cities in the aftermath of the conclusion of Book 4, House of Chains. Loman of the Flails is the highest ranking remaining leader of the Army of the Apocalypse, this failed rebellion on 7 Cities continent. He and this army are fleeing away from Raraku, the former holy desert that has now been reborn as an inland sea. They're pretty depressed. Everything fell apart. Shaik was killed. Nothing worked out the way they'd hoped. This rebellion of destiny that was going to fling the Malazans from their shores is over. Or maybe not. This army is still looking to Loman to lead them somewhere special, to do one more miracle. They are on the side of right, are they not? And Loman? This dude is depressed. He does not know what to do. There's no point to anything anymore. He's ready to give up. And honestly, he might have just decided to give up right there and then. You got this whole army looking to him and putting all their hope in him and his plans, and he's got nothing. He doesn't see what's the point anymore. But he's got a lieutenant, a right-hand man, Korab. Korab is a pretty massive warrior, pretty impressive specimen, but he's not a leader. He's a follower, and he's totally been following Loman of the Flails. And whatever Loman wants to do, Korab is there to back him up. And when he sees Loman pretty much throwing in the towel, he's like, dude, you cannot do that. Look at all these people around us. You have to lead. You are meant to lead. So pull your crap together and do something. He says it in a nicer way than that. But this does lead Loman to come up with a plan. It's maybe not a great plan. He doesn't tell everybody the plan, but he does give them a destination. They are now going to keep going and reach Yucatan, the fabled city, one of the great cities of the 7 cities. And it's a particularly special place to these people because it's where one of their more recent best victories happened, even though it's the time the city fell to the Malazans. At the last battle of Yucatan, this is where Dasim Ultur, the sword of the emperor, fell. Now, that's after the emperor was gone, and so he's the sword of the empress at that point. He was this unbelievably impossible to defeat warrior, and at the Battle of Yucatan, he went down. Now, there's a lot more to that, which if you've read Knight of Knives by Elsamont, you know about. And since I read it, I get this stuff. There's layers in there that are awesome. But this is where they're going to go. We're going to go back to Yucatan. This is a popular destination for the rest of them. And Loman has a plan. Now, pursuing this rebel army is the remainder of the Malazan forces, the primary group of the Malazan forces under Adjunct Tavor Perrin. This is the group that had gone to deal with the army of the apocalypse, to deal with this Shaik, and Tavor herself killed Shaik, not realizing that was actually her younger sister, Felicin Perrin, and she still doesn't know that throughout this book. Will she ever? I don't know. But this Tavor Perrin, she's leading them, pursuing the army of the apocalypse. We're going to see through this mission. And this is one strange lady. We already sensed from before, she's kind of mysterious. She's got stuff going on. She's not sharing with anybody. And that does not get clearer in this book. The mystery around her only grows. More about that later. Along the way, throughout going back to book 4 and now here through book 6, this particular group of Malazan army has come to be known as the Bonehunters. Again, the roots of that start when they were really not sure what the heck they were doing, and Adjunct Tavor had just taken over, and things fall into place so that they create an identity for themselves. They become special. And in this novel, the Bonehunters takes on a whole nother level of special. Mythic proportions rivaling what we've heard in the past about the Bridge Burners, that other group of Malazan army who went through something horrific and came through on top, which, by the way, also happened here on the continent of 7 cities. So there are some parallels, some connections, and now something's going to happen here to elevate the Bonehunters. The Bridge Burners, by the way, are mostly gone at this point due to events that happened in Book 3, Memories of Ice. They're either dead, like Whiskey Jack, or they've gone into hiding for a pseudo-retirement with Dujek One-Arm's consent, or they're still around. There's just a few of them that are still around, like Fiddler, the sapper, who's right here with this army following Adjunct Tavor Perrin. And those that are dead, by the way, at least some of them, maybe a lot of them, have ascended. They're not just dead. So Bridge Burners, there's still stuff going on there. But we've got a new entry to put in here now. The Bonehunters. Let's forget about the Bridge Burners. We're going to be talking about the Bonehunters now. Because Yucatan, they get here, and they did not catch the rebel army. It got here ahead of them, and it got inside. And this place has been set up as a horrific trap. The Malazans don't know that. All they know is, okay, we're here now, and we're all by ourselves. So are the forces of the apocalypse. It's just them and us, and they might want us to just try to set siege to the city, and maybe some of their people will rally to them, and the numbers will turn against us. We don't have any reinforcements coming our way here, so We should deal with this fast rather than slow. On top of it, there's a plague spreading across this part of the Seven Cities continent. It hasn't struck right here at Yucatan yet, but it could. And if the plague gets here, okay, that all bets are off then. So we've got two reasons right there to escalate this, move it along. So, yeah, they set up a plan. They're going to find a way to get into the city. Now, this plays right into the hands of Loman of the Flails. He wants this to happen. He is prepared for this to happen. So here's what happens. She sets some of her sappers up with these, these more ramp munitions that the Malazans use. These things are great. They're explosives of all sorts. Erickson comes up with a way to put C4 and TNT into this book. But these things are powerful and dangerous, and in a very entertaining scene, they blow a big freaking hole in the wall of Yucatan. So, okay, we got through the sturdy walls. Now, let's go into the city. So a bunch of the Malazans go rushing into the city, and they do face resistance. Not immediate, just a little, and they keep pushing on and overcoming the resistance they get, and then they run into the trap that Loman has set. See, Yucatan is a city that's famous for its olive oil. Apparently, olive oil is flammable. Now, I use olive oil in cooking all the time. I don't expect it to blow up in my face, but I guess if you have enough of it packed into the walls, into the buildings, into vats all over the place, and then you have suicidal zealots who light themselves on fire and jump into these things. Kaboom! Loman basically uses his entire army to go suicidal to burn Yucatan down around the Malazan army. A lot of Malazans die. This is not a pretty picture. Others are maimed horribly. Pretty much all of the army of the apocalypse, they die doing this. They willingly sacrifice themselves to the cause. Cool, except Loman cheats. He has no intention of dying. Oh, this was his plan, and this is how he's going to take out the Malazan army, but he doesn't plan to go down with this ship or this city, or whatever you want to call it. He's made a deal with a goddess, the Queen of Dreams, who right there in the center of the city, in the temple of another goddess who's not around anymore, she opens up a warren and come along with me, Loman. Let's peace out. And Loman's expecting Koreb to come with. He does have someone else with him, by the way. See, Yucatan was actually a city that was under control of the Malazans, a skeleton force, until Loman showed up. And the commander, or one of the highest commanders there, flips sides, turns over and goes along with Loman. And she escapes with him too. She, by the way, is the younger sister of Whiskey Jack. That might come into play somewhere along the line. The bridge burners know her, but not in this story yet. They escape, and Loman's like, Korab, let's go. His right-hand man. And Korab's like, dude, this is so wrong. You used everybody to get rid of a lot of Malazans, and you're just leaving? That's dirty. Korab won't go. Okay, bye. Loman's gone. Koreb's left. The fire is intense. No one is escaping the city anymore. But a core group of our Malazans make it to the temple, again, with more losses, including some really core people. But in the temple, they connect up with Korab, who's like, yeah, I'm not really with the bad guys anymore because they ditched me. So, hey, I'll be your prisoner. Let's do something together and see if we can get out of here. They come up with a way to go down through the floor. Okay, this city, like many ancient cities, especially you go back to the Middle East, the Mediterranean, Persian lands, cities were built on top of former levels of the city and former levels of the city. Sometimes when the city was destroyed in battle and then they just built on the rubble. Sometimes things just collapsed over time and they keep building higher. Yucatan is like that. So there are many layers to this city. Yes, like an onion. They find a way to climb down through these these forgotten places underneath the city. Places that are not all warm and fuzzy and easy to navigate. Instead, these are terrifying places. Old abandoned wells, sewer lines, collapsed buildings where there are still air pockets. How in the world are they going to navigate something like this? Well, they have with them a squad mage named Bottle. There's a little more to Bottle than just a regular mage, and we've had hints of that. We know a little bit about that. One of the things that he can do is he can connect with animals of all kinds: vermin, insects, big beasts and small. And he can kind of control them, but kind of does it more in a friendly way. They want to help him. And he gets his eyes into a rat. And that rat, with the influence of Bottle, leads the Malazans deep down under the earth. Dark, scary places, tight fitting, again, claustrophobic areas, and they manage to find a way out of the city, outside the walls. It takes them days to get out. And it's not just these soldiers and their prisoner Korab. They also find some orphans that were being protected in this temple, and they get the orphans out too. It's traumatic. They nearly die. Suffocation, dehydration, fear, all sorts of things are against them, but they manage to make it out, and they come out through this shared trial, tragedy, and triumph is something new, something different. The Bone Hunters. And yet, this is only the first half of the book. There's so much more to this book. I got to go through the rest of this stuff fast, people. Rapid review. So, here's some other key events to take place. We get to meet Icarium again. Icarium, the dangerous and mysterious Jag, a half Jagged, who loses his handler and friend, Mappo Runt, through the manipulations and ambush of Terlak Veed. Terlak is a disgusting and disgraced Grawl warrior, a new race of people that we meet. See, Mappo has been working as Icarium's handler on behalf of the Nameless Ones, a secretive society that is focused on protecting the world from Icarium, a very dangerous being, though we don't know entirely why. A nearly immortal being who did something horrible in the past and now has memory issues. And they're trying to preserve the memory issues and make sure he doesn't become this terror again. Or do they have other motives? And we learn here they have some other motives. Now, we had hints about that before because Mappo has already gone against the Nameless One's wishes in a previous book. He is not comfortable using Icarium the way they want him to. He cares about Icarium. He wants to protect Icarium from truly having his memories restored and becoming this danger to the world. He wants him to be peaceful and enjoy life. The Nameless Ones want to mop Mappo out of the way, so they have Veed replace him. Literally takes him out through an ambush, gets Icarium out of the way for a moment, unconscious, and does Mappo in. When Icarium wakes up, Terlak Veed's there like, hey, you're finally awake again, and acting like he's been his companion for decades. Memory issues, Icarium kind of buys it, Veed sells it, and off they go as the duo. For whatever purposes the Nameless Ones want Terlak Veed to use Icarium for. Mappo, however, will still have a role to play, because even though he was left for dead, he didn't actually die. He almost died, but he is saved through the intervention of the Shadow House. As the High Priest of Shadow, Iskarol Pust, who we met before in a previous book, shows up to help him, to heal him, and has with him his wife. It's great. His witch of a wife. Yeah, she's literally a witch. And together, they save Mappo's life and nurse him back to health. We also get to reconnect with Karsa Orlong, this great, massive warrior, Toblakai. We had so many good things about him in House of Chains, and now he's back. is just a delightful character. I really love Karsa Orlong. In this book, he's going to meet up with a new companion. Remember, he peaced out from the army of the apocalypse just before everything went totally bad. He was there for parts of that, but then he was like, no, I'm off on my own mission. Now, you might also remember that the crippled god and his house of chains has claimed Corsa Arlong as, I believe, his knight of chains. Yeah, and Karsa is still was like, no, I'm going to do what I want to do. So this is the Karsa Orlong we meet. He's going to do what he wants to do. And one of those things he does is he meets up with another witch, Samar Dev, and she becomes his traveling companion. Now, I really enjoy their relationship, the interactions these two have, the way their characters are written. And I think Erikson does this intentionally. He builds them up as a stark, striking contrast, relationship-wise, to what we get from Carium and Terralak Veed. You don't like that relationship, and you just love Karsa and Samardev. And Karsa Orlong is just a delightful character. I can't say it enough. Now, everyone, all these major groups we're talking about, eventually arrive at the northern coast of the continent where the story will progress. When I say everyone, this even includes Quickben and Callum. They come back into our story. So does the former possessed assassin Apsalar, once known as Sari, when she was just a conscript in the army, being used by Cotillion, the rope. So much to that. I'm not going to go through all that again. But they all end up together. We also have Ganos Perrin show back up again, who's able to move around vast spaces, in and out of warrens, as the master of the deck. We end up with seeing Ganos and some of the other core characters come into a confrontation with the goddess Poliel. Or Poliel, not sure how to say that. See, Ganos comes upon the part of the Malazan army that's on Seven Cities that's not with his sister. He doesn't even know his sister's over there, Tavor. And this is the part that Dujek One Arm was running. However, this group of the army has been hit hard by the plague, including Dujek, who does die from the plague. But when he's just dying, Ganos commits to go into the city and take on the goddess Poliel, who's in the city and she's responsible for this plague. He's going to see if he can fix this. Apparently the Malazans tried to do that originally, and that's part of how they got hit so hard by the plague. You don't take on the goddess of plagues. At least not if you want to live. But Ganos will. He's got some special powers. Others get involved with that too. There's a whole bunch of things that happen, and yeah, Poliel is taken out. Okay, that's sort of cool, but it can't be a good thing when goddesses are being taken out. Stuff's getting serious. But hey, plague is dealt with. Plague is gone. There's so much more I could talk about, but I'm going to just focus now on the final two key elements I see in this book as really moving the narrative forward. First, Adjunct Tavor Perrin and her army take to the sea. They need to get back to Malaz City for some reason, and eventually back to the Empress. Along the way, they have two striking encounters. One with sailors and ships of the Tisti Adur Empire. You know, that one that's being run by Rulad Sengar, who we met in book 5. Okay, so this is bringing storylines together. You know, Rulad Sengar is the undying emperor and the pawn of the crippled god. Rulad has sent out his sailors, including one group of them is led by his father, Tomad, to find challengers to bring back to the Lethari Empire to face Rulad, to try to kill Rulad. Now, this is kind of insane because Rulad can't die. Well, he can die. He just comes back every time. That's the curse he's under. Blessing, curse, whatever you want to call it, it's a curse from the crippled god, because dying is horrible. Coming back is even worse. And yet he is driven to try to find champions to face him. Most of them he'll easily kill. Some might kill him. but he'll get them eventually. Maybe after the second death, the third death, the fourth death. It's terrible. And the crowds love it. They love to watch these things. It's like gladiator battles, but it's always their emperor against someone else. So there is a confrontation between these searching ships and the Malaz fleet. And they face off, and magic is what's going to solve this one. Now, if you remember, the magic that the Tistiador are using is empowered by the crippled god and is tapping into deep elder magic. Scary, powerful stuff. The Malazans, they've got magic. They've got Quickbed, a high mage. They've got Bottle, that squad mage, who is more than he appears. But they can't. They can't match up. We've seen no magic of the level to match up with what's going to come at them from the Tistiador. And yet, something happens here, and they do overcome the Tistiador and send them running with their tails between their legs. They don't really have tails, but you get what I'm saying. So, that was cool. A pretty powerful thing that nobody really understands what just happened. The Malazans then, free from the Tistiador, meet up with another fleet, but these guys are on their side. They're actually looking for them. They expected them. These are the Parish, another empire from the same continent as Seven Cities, but way at the other end. And they are a religious sect and powerful magic users in their own rights who are followers of Tog and Fanderay, elder gods, hounds that are back. We saw them come back in a previous book. I believe it was Memories of Ice. And this is a result. The Parish are here, and they are ready to help these Malazans get to Malaz City in record time. So a journey that could have taken months takes only days, and ta-da, here they are. And yet, things don't go as expected there either. I'll come right back to that because I got to stick with the Tistiador for just a moment, because these parties that were looking for champions come upon two champions to take back with them. Ikariam with Terralakvid and Karsa Orlong with Samardev. So these two powerful beings are now headed off with the Tistiador to face Rulad Sengar. Oh, that's surely going to go just fine. Terralakvid thinks this is awesome. It seems to fit the purpose he identifies with for Ikariam. Samardev would love to talk Karsa Orlong out of this, but he's somehow superbly confident this is exactly what he should do, and it's going to work out great. We won't find out in this book. More to come. Okay, back to Malaz City. What happens here is insane, but the crux of it is that Tavor keeps most of her ships out of the bay. Don't even come into the harbor. She just takes a few there, and then only she and a couple companions get off the ship. She needs to go meet with the Empress, who just arrived as well. Like she knew they were coming, even though they're months early. Magic. Tavor brings with her Callum, our assassin bridge burner, and her lover and advisor to Amber. Amber's been a mysterious woman. We don't entirely know what all's gone on between her and Tavor. Maybe we'll find out at some point, but not here still. There's still just mystery. The three of them go in and quickly meet with the Empress, and that does not go well at all, which does not seem to surprise Tavor. It actually seems to go like she expected, and yet she felt she needed to do this. She needed to meet with Lysine. See, Lysine appears to be stuck in a bad position somehow, maybe one of her making, maybe not. But she has sitting with her in high positions people who are clearly enemies of the Malazan Empire, people who do not have the Malazan Empire's best wishes in mind, but only their own powerful desires and goals, and are not going to be necessarily working for the good of Lysine. One of the biggest Malazan traders from back in Seven Cities, who was captured and sent back in chains, is now here at her right hand. What the heck? So, that doesn't go well. And it leads to a hair-raising escape attempt by Tavor and Callum and to Amber. that gets Tavor back to the ships. Callum nearly dies. He's only not dead by the direct intervention of Callanved himself, the former emperor, now serving as the ascended being Shadow Throne, and chucks him into the House of Azoth. Hopefully he'll recover, but at least he won't die right away. Oh, and that was kind of necessary because Callanved's right-hand man, Dancer, who's now the ascended being Cotillion, also working in Shadow, stopped Quick Ben from coming to Callum's aid by making Quick Ben fulfill a promise, a commitment, a chip that he had to commit to get things out of Cotillion in the past. So he's taken out of the way. Quick Ben's got to do something else, which is why Callum nearly dies. All of this wraps up with Tavor and her Malazan army now being rogue. They're no longer officially sanctioned by the Empress. Technically, I guess they're not even a Malazan army. And they are headed off on some new mission that only Tavor seems to understand, which is where we leave off and have to await Book 7, Reaper's Gale, to find out what happens. Again, there is so much more touched on in this book, so much more to be revealed as we continue through this story. Feel free to drop in the comments down below your favorite key points or aspects of the story that I didn't even touch on. And if I got anything totally wrong here, please go ahead and correct me. Don't spoil. I'm not finished with the series yet. But up through this point, tell me what I'm missing, what I got wrong. I will not be offended. Help me out. I loved this story. The more I get from Steven Erikson, the better. Not one bit of the story was dull, boring, or a waste for me. This was my favorite book so far working through Malazan. It just keeps getting better. This book is so packed with meaning. I'm just so happy to be reading Malazan Book of the Fallen. Okay, that's where I'll leave you. Thanks again for being with us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave your comments. Look in the show notes for other ways to connect with Zach and I. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.